They didn't just take out a man, they eliminated an idea. Muammar Gaddafi wasn't perfect, no revolutionary ever is, but he was dangerous to the West for all the wrong reasons. Not because he was evil, not because he was insane, but because he dared to imagine a self-sufficient Africa, united, sovereign, and economically powerful. And for that, he had to go. Part 1. The Dream That Frightened Empires. In the years leading up to his elimination, Gaddafi was no longer merely Libya's leader. He had become a Pan-African voice of thunder, a visionary rallying for a continent that would no longer beg from the IMF, no longer borrow from the World Bank, no longer kneel before Western donors who gave with one hand and stole with the other. His plan? To create a single African currency backed by gold, the gold dinar. If it succeeded, it would collapse the dollar hegemony in Africa. It would end France's grip on its former colonies through the CFA franc. It would give Africa the ability to trade internally and with global partners on its own terms. It was a direct threat to the petrodollar, a threat to Western banking interests, a threat to the entire architecture of neocolonialism. And Western powers, the US, France, Britain, were watching closely. Part 2. Conspiracy in the Skies. In 2011, under the smokescreen of the Arab Spring, protests broke out in Libya. The West saw its moment. They didn't offer dialogue, they didn't seek peace. They sent warplanes. NATO, under the guise of a humanitarian intervention, launched a full-scale bombing campaign against Libya. They claimed it was to protect civilians. But in truth, it was to remove Gaddafi and destroy the threat of a liberated Africa before it could materialize. They armed militias. They destroyed infrastructure. They turned Africa's richest country into a war zone. No-fly zone became a lie zone, and while missiles rained from above, a silence echoed across the continent. Because African leaders, many of whom Gaddafi had helped fund and support, were threatened behind closed doors. If you intervene, you will be next. So they turned their backs, out of fear, out of self-preservation, and out of the very weakness that Gaddafi sought to cure in Africa. Part 3. Betrayal and Blood. On October 20th, 2011, they caught him, hiding in a drainpipe, his convoy bombed by NATO. They dragged him out, Africa's lion, beaten, bloodied, and humiliated. They filmed his final moments as he was tortured and sodomized in the dirt, not just to kill him, but to make an example. To tell the rest of Africa, this is what happens when you try to rise. Hillary Clinton would laugh on camera saying, "We came, we saw, he died, and the world moved on." But Libya did not, Africa did not, and neither did the dream. Part 4. The Puppets and the Prison. Since independence, Africa has not been free. Western education taught African children about Shakespeare, Napoleon, and the Renaissance, while ignoring the empires of Mali, the libraries of Timbuktu, the queens of Kush, and the philosophies of the Nile Valley. Western religion taught Africans to close their eyes and wait for heaven, while their lands were stripped, their identities erased, and their resistance labeled as sin. And those who rose? Lumumba in Congo, murdered. Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, assassinated. Nkrumah in Ghana, overthrown. All by foreign-backed plots. Today, the DRC, a country with $24 trillion in resources, remains poor, destabilized by militias and foreign interference. Zimbabwe was economically strangled for daring to reclaim its land. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is flooded with oil wealth, yet crippled by foreign contracts and elite corruption. South Africa, post-apartheid, still wrestles with deep inequality and foreign capital owning its soil. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are rising again, but face resistance at every turn. Every time an African nation begins to wake up, the puppet strings tighten. Because Africa isn't poor. It's being kept poor by design. Part 5. The Warning That Became a Prophecy. Gaddafi once stood before African Union leaders and warned, "If they get me today, you're next. One by one, they will come for you." He knew. He saw it clearly. And now, in Libya, a once thriving nation, slavery has returned. Yes, in the 21st century, Africans are being sold in open-air slave markets, on the soil where Gaddafi once dreamed of African unity. What greater irony, what deeper betrayal. Part 6. The Tears of a Continent. This story isn't just political, it's personal. It is the story of stolen futures, of lives undone, of dreams aborted before birth. It is the pain in the eyes of the Congolese child digging cobalt for tech giants. It is the exhaustion of Nigerian youth protesting police brutality, only to be met with bullets. It is the sorrow of a Zimbabwean farmer watching his land fall to ruin. It is the despair in a Malian village bombed by drones in a war they didn't start. And it is the ghost of Gaddafi whispering through the sands, "Africa, remember who you are." Part 7. A dream deferred, not destroyed. They removed Gaddafi, but they could not remove his dream. The gold dinar lives in whispers. Pan-Africanism burns in the hearts of the youth. Sankara's spirit walks in Burkina Faso. Nkrumah's prophecy echoes louder. Lumumba's blood still cries from the Congo River. And now, a new generation is rising, angrier, wiser, unchained. Not with guns, but with truth, with knowledge, with unity. Because the real war is not just against leaders, it is against the awakening of a continent. And that they will never stop. They removed Gaddafi, but they didn't remove the fire. Now it is up to us to carry it, to remember, to resist, to rebuild, because Africa will rise, not as the world's beggar, but as its moral and spiritual compass.